Good evening. It's Latasha Thomas, your worth coach and restoration strategist, bringing you tonight's moment of clarity. I am so excited to be with you today. It's been a wonderful day, a beautiful day, and I hope the same for you. Tonight's topic is the power in the pack. So, what does that mean? There are so many different animals that are travel in packs, and there are different names for them, of course, and there are different names that, have you ever seen that show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Like, I certainly would miss some of those questions. And when I was looking up different types of packs of animals or things, I was surprised by some of the answers. So I just wanted to share a couple of them with you just for fun. We posted it in a question just to see how many of you knew. And tonight we're going to give you the answers. So a pack of camels are typically called a caravan, which was interesting because when I grew up, there was the Dodge Caravan and they always had a minivan. The minivan carried several family members in a pack. Well, camels travel in caravans, and there are sometimes up to 500 camels. And they carry passengers and goods, and that happens regularly. I promise you, I'm going somewhere with this, so stick with me. Then you also have the bees, right? Most of us know about a swarm of bees, and we also know about what? The beehive or the beehive, right? But they typically do this. They typically swarm when they're overcrowded, when there's disease, when there's a lack of resources or repeated disturbance of their hive. And so they will leave. And what's interesting about a bee is that it will, the queen bee is, she runs the show. And so the queen bee will, the worker bees will kind of stop her from eating too much, catch this, so that she can then fly when they swarm to another place. Interesting, right? So the worker bees are typically the ones that do all of her work. They cater to her, right? And they make sure that everything is good. Well, they also make sure that she is capable of flying because she's heavy, right? She's producing the larva or the eggs for all of the bees. She determines what sex they are, if they're going to be female or male, and they prepare her for flight. That's interesting to me. So then there was also some interesting ones. Good evening, ladies. There were also some interesting ones where it was like, I normally say like a herd of buffalo. Well, you can also call it a gang, right? So how many of us have friends that are in our circle or have had them, and they're like a gang of sisters? Like, these are my sisters. But I really just thought that one was interesting, so I felt like I would share that one with you. And the last one is eagles. Now, we all have been inspired by eagles in our lifetime. We hear lots of stories. Even in the Bible, they talk about eagles and their wings and taking flight. Basically, we use them a lot. And why I find this one interesting is that you can call a bunch or a group of eagles a convocation. So, yes, exactly, Naja, a gang. But what they call the proper term for a group of eagles is convocation. Now, when I think of the word convocation, I think of ceremony, right? Like graduation ceremonies where you are now taking your flight into the next dimension of your life. And what I found interesting about each and every one of these groups of unique names for animals, each group has its own purpose, has its own reason for gathering and staying connected to one another. And a lot of times it's a matter of self-preservation and protection. But what I find interesting is that as human beings, we choose to go in isolation. We choose, when we're struggling and we're going through something, we choose to find ourselves in a space of isolation. Why do we do that? We can take examples from nature. We can take examples from other animals and begin to realize that we still need our gang of sisters We still need our worker bees to help us as queens. Each of us, we call ourselves queens nowadays all the time. Honestly, I think it's an overused term. Just saying. But we have queens. Each of us are considered a queen in our own right. And so what is wrong with having people surrounding us who help us and prepare us to get rid of the excess so that we can begin to take flight into our next in our next space, in our next dimension, right? And so, and then you think about the camels, right? The camels with the caravan, the carrying, the Dodge Caravan is what I typically think of, but they help you carry goods and their passengers, and they regularly do this thing. And so what I find interesting is that the camel is carrying goods. How many times have we had resources at our disposal that all we needed to do was to access, to utilize them, to tap into the resource that we have right before us? How many times have we had some good that we were carrying ourselves and that we could produce or provide for someone else, but we're holding on to them, we're keeping them in the pack, and we're not sharing them? How many gifts are you carrying along in your camel caravan along with your sisters? How many things have you yet to unpack? I know there's things that I have yet to unpack, and I know there's things that you have yet to unpack. So it's time to access those things, y'all. The world is opening up. There's no more excuses out here. It's time for us to take flight, okay? Just like those eagles in the convocation, it's time for us to go to the next dimension, to graduate from our loneliness, to graduate from our depression, to graduate from our fear, to graduate from our anxiety. It is now time for us to go into the next dimension. And I know you know what I'm talking about. I know you do. I know you do. So, I just want to talk about the power of the pack. Now, I know we're talking about a pack, right? And we talked about the different names for different animals, different things. Now, I couldn't skip the wolves, right? So a pack of wolves. We always talk about this, the pack of wolves, right? And hey, Tiffany. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Naja. I see all y'all jumping in here. I see y'all. Love y'all. And so we talk about the power of the pack, right? And the pack of wolves, actually, in my mind, I always thought about, just like a huge group of wolves. Well, in my research, we were talking about, it said that the pack of wolves is really just a family. It's a family of wolves, and they care for and they feed the young. That's what they're doing. They're there to protect. There's a female and a male, and they're there to protect and feed the young. Well, once the young becomes mature and decides, which is the beta male, and decides that he would like to go and find another pack or mate with someone else, hey, Tiffany, then what he'll do is go ahead and leave the pack. So much like ourselves, right? We grow up, we decide, you know what? It's time for us to spread our wings. We're going to leave our family home. We're going to leave this comfort. We're going to leave the state, whatever the case may be, and we're going to go to the next space. Well, what's interesting is that when it leaves the pack, it becomes a lone wolf. That's how they designate it. It becomes a lone wolf. Okay, so why is that significant? Well, when you leave the pack, you're leaving your protection. And the beta male who leaves the pack, who's ready to join another pack or do his own thing, now has to be prepared to fight an alpha male of the next pack, right? So basically, they're leaving and they're saying, you know what? I'm going to join this pack and I'm going to mate with this female. Okay, well, now you're in trouble. Now you better defend your territory and you better make sure you bring it your A game, right? So the alpha male of the other group then has to fight the beta male. Now, why am I going through all of this? Because my point is that when we leave our pack, when we leave And there are seasons where we do need to leave our current pack and join another one. But when we do that, we become that lone wolf. And so that is the dangerous territory. Are you sitting in a season where you actually need to be under the protection and the covering of someone or some women or some other older sisters, wiser sisters, and you've decided that you were going to leave your pack prematurely? And you're not ready for this other space that you're in. Or you're typically the type of person who faces fear, faces something that's not going well in your life, and you decide to distance yourself from your pack. Distance yourself from your sisters, the girls who can hold your arms up and make sure that you're doing okay. Are you that lone wolf right now? Are you the person who needs a little extra support? I know that I'm always talking about positivity and trying to uplift you, but I also recognize that there are seasons where you feel lonely and there are seasons where you don't feel equipped. And it's okay to be in that season. It's okay. I've definitely spent time in those seasons. And there are some seasons where God has called you to be alone in that space so that you can begin to grow and to understand who you are as a woman, who you are as a person. Sometimes the things that knock us off of our feet are the very things that help us to understand exactly who we are at our core. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the times when you are so worried about things that you don't want to share it with another sister, where you're so worried that you're going to appear a certain way and you don't want to share that. Well, guess what? There's a story in the Bible of this young woman who decides that she's going to hide or attempt to hide the fact that she had 5 husbands. And what's interesting is she has an encounter with Jesus. And Jesus says to her, I know what you've done. I know everything about you. And she was in awe. And this was at the well where she was supposed to get water. But the whole thing was she was hiding her season. She was hiding and embarrassed about that season of her life. However, once she had that encounter with Jesus, she then was excited, and the Bible says that she led with the thing that she was hiding. Guess what, y'all? I've been in a season where I was hiding the fact that I was ashamed of the fact that I was getting a divorce. I was ashamed of my separation. I was ashamed, honestly, to even be a single parent. I was ashamed when I went in the store and I didn't have a ring on my hand and I had children in tow. I never wanted to be a single mom. But guess what? I am thriving. I am thriving in this thing. And you know what? You can thrive in that season too. And as a matter of fact, I'm not ashamed of my story anymore. I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I'm healed from it. And you know what? You can be healed from it too. So I encourage you to continue to keep those sisters around you who can keep you lifted up and who can be your pack, who can make sure that you are safe and that you are doing well in your season. And so you know what? I hope that you would continue to stay connected to this group, that you would continue to follow me. If you're not following me already and you're looking at this video on YouTube, you can follow me at Victory by Nicole. You can also reach me at victorybynicole.com for more content. But what I want to say to you is that keep your sisters, keep those good sisters around you who have sound mind and who are willing to push you and to strive and help you to move forward in your life. And actually, you reach back and you be that to another sister. So I'm praying for you guys. I hope that today's live has been different for you, a little informative. Maybe next time you get a "Are you smarter than a 5th grader?" question, you'll be ready to answer it. But most importantly, the point is that there is a power in the pack. Don't do this thing called life alone. You don't have to. And if you need support from me, feel free to reach out to me directly. I love you, and I hope that this week is amazing. Have a good night. Bye-bye.